in Minecraft Hardcore on one block. We will be stranded in an... Today, me and my two other friends are going to be surviving 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore on one block. We will be stranded in an empty void with nothing to see in sight besides one regenerating block. How much will we achieve? And what will we build in these 100 days? Well, you're gonna have to stick around to the end to find out. Anyways, this is 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore 1 block Trios Edition. So, day number 1 in this empty void of nothingness, besides this one block. We had to start breaking the block to get more blocks. After breaking the block for a little bit, I collected some dirt and then built around the block so we can prevent anyone from glitching off and dying. Yeah, that happened a few times. It was time to start collecting more blocks. How many times did I just say blocks? Oh well, we kept breaking the block until a pig spawned. So I crafted up a crafting table and then made some slabs to extend the island out a little bit. One of my friends recommended me to place the slabs on the bottom half of the block so mobs wouldn't spawn. Though placing the slabs on the bottom of the block would be quite annoying because placing blocks on top of slabs like that gets kinda glitchy. We kept breaking the block because at the moment that was the only thing we could do. Eventually we got a chest and inside the chest there was a water bucket. I placed the water and placed a slab underneath the regenerating block so when gravel and other gravity blocks would spawn, they would no longer fall into the never-ending void. A little time later, we broke the final block of the tutorial phase and then we were ready to begin our very first stage, the plains. We started this new stage by placing down some chests and then crafting some extra slabs to further extend the island out. We crafted a ton of slabs and in no time we had extended the island out quite a lot, and then we went straight back to breaking the block until another pig spawned. We continued breaking the block, but because it was going to get really boring, here's a quick compilation of all the animals we got. We got our very first cow. Not long after, we got a sheep that really wanted to get in our way. We also got a chicken. I'm not sure when because I also started planting some saplings so we could get some more wood. We got another sheep. These things must be mocking us because it's literally spinning right in front of us, blocking our way. Whilst the block was being broken, the island was also being extended using more oak slabs. Continue breaking the block, we also got a cow, a ton of chickens, another sheep, even more chickens, and by night time of day 1, we managed to finish the first stage of the block. We got a chest called the Benevolent Gift, and inside the chest was a grass block along with a few other materials inside. We broke the block and then we had to wait around 20 seconds to get to the next stage of this block. Still on day 1, we were now on the underground stage. I crafted a wooden pickaxe and then started breaking the block, collecting even more cobblestone where I would craft a furnace, smelt down a log to get charcoal. I then crafted a fence gate for the farm one of my friends were making, and then crafted some torches as well using the charcoal that I had smelted in the furnace earlier. So now we could see the area a little better during the night time. We spent some time trying to move all the animals into their new home. Man, this was annoying. If we moved one animal in, 2 animals would run out. Using some iron we had collected from the block, I crafted some shears and then started shearing the sheep in hopes to hopefully get enough wool for our beds, but unfortunately that was a fail. We continued mining the block until I had decided it was time to start using some of our dirt to make up a quick and easy farm for some extra food and wheat to breed the animals. Now if I continue to say every small detail on what happened on this day, I think you would all get extremely bored. So let's fast forward to day number 2. I started by crafting up a stone hoe and tilled the farm area that I had just started to build. I planted some potatoes, melon seeds, pumpkin seeds, and sweet berries, and then went back to further progressing through the block until a creeper decided to spawn and blow up a little bit of our island. That wasn't very nice. Sometime through the day, I remembered that sheep don't regenerate their wool unless they have grass underneath them. So I built out a small dirt area, chest of the plains biome phase of the block, and now all there was left to do was wait for the grass to spread to all the other dirt blocks. We filled some holes in the island with slabs and then went back to breaking the block, fighting off mobs such as zombies until we somehow already made it through the underground phase. While I was doing all the island expansion, they continued to break through the block. The speed that we were moving through these block phases are insane. We also got a map which would allow us to keep track of all the building progress we make through these 100 days. We decided to put the map on an item frame so at the end we can update the map and see how far we had come. But apart from that, we're now in a new phase. The icy tundra, home to lots and lots of snowballs. These dumb snowballs fill up your chest so easily as well. This is also the phase where those snow foxes can spawn, and for those who don't already know, they like to eat chicken. So with some random blocks that that I found in my inventory and the chests, I started building a roof on top of the animal pen in hopes to keep the chickens safe. I also turned some bones into bone meal to get more potatoes, and then crafted some extra fences and started placing them down in that area where I would move all the sheep later on with all the grass blocks and stuff. I then attempted to bring sheep over. However, of course, once I opened those fences, some pigs and other animals tried to escape. Slowly but surely, we managed to bring all the sheep over into their new homes, after they took the same living life on the edge very seriously. The only other exciting thing that happened today was this mob party. There were a ton of mobs that would spawn and deal a ton of damage, but we managed to take it out fairly easy. We started day 3 back at the block once again. Some strays spawned, but honestly, none of these mobs could stand a chance against us. They would all be dealt with as fast as they would spawn in. Also, today is the day we finally got enough wool to craft the 3rd bed. Truly exciting time. It was at this point we started making good progress with island expansion as well. I was chopping down trees that had grown, whilst Will, this fella, continued to work on placing down slabs. Not too long later, we had made it to the final chest of the Icy Tundra stage. Inside this chest, one of the most important items in this whole playthrough was inside it, a block of ice. With a bucket of water from the plain stage, we can now get an infinite water source. We broke the chest, and this time we had to wait around 40 seconds to reach the next stage. I broke the ice block and then started building a small little 4x4 platform to make an infinite water source. Oh yeah, while I was doing this, the block had also upgraded, and now we were on phase number 4, the ocean. I made an infinite water source, and then we got back to mining the block. While breaking the block, we managed to get a diamond. However, I was clearly struggling to pick this one up. It was around this time that I thought it would be a cool idea to do literally what everyone in One Block Skyblock does, and that was to make a pond. I crafted some prismarine slabs and then went on to building a circle shape for the pond. This wasn't going to be too big or too small either, and for the very first time in this world, we also went to sleep. Soon after a little bit of trial and error, the pond outline had been completed, so now it was time to build in the walls. Since we just simply won't have enough prismarine to build the walls out of it, we decided to build the walls out of cobblestone. And apparently, while I was trying to figure out how to build up these walls, Eloise, this person here, managed to get a trident. My best guess was this was from one of the chests or something that would randomly spawn. Well, that's pretty cool, I guess. Also, since we wouldn't have enough cobblestone to make the walls and floor out of the cobblestone, we decided to just use some spruce slabs instead for the floor. I followed the design of the top circle, and then we filled in the gaps of the floor with all the slab. And while the floor was being built up, the walls were also starting to be filled in with cobblestone as well. Soon later, the pond had been finished. We outlined the pond with some dirt blocks, so then we could plant some bamboo to give some extra color around the pond. But now the pond was complete, while the block was still being broken, we also started expanding the island out even further. Since I ran out of wood, preventing us from crafting more slabs, I used some of the bone meal to bone meal the saplings for more wood. But as I started doing this, another monster party spawned, and we had to quickly fight off some of those annoying mobs. We went ahead and quickly farmed some of the bamboo that had grown near our pond, and then went straight back to breaking the block to further progress. Sometime through this day, we managed to complete the jungle phase. We broke the final chest, and then, like all the other phases, we were required to wait for the block to upgrade. But this time, we had to wait around 60 seconds. We waited the time, and now we're on to phase number 6, the Red Desert. And since at the moment we didn't really need to do much work around the island, we decided to continue breaking the block. I would love to say we did something interesting. However, for quite some time, we actually just spent this time breaking the block. Though, I guess every now and then we also had to fight off some mobs like these annoying husks and these pillagers. But sticking to the block breaking theme, we changed things up a tiny bit, and instead we went ahead and started breaking down some trees for extra wood. And then we looked through the chest for some random blocks to make a hole in our island. You may have seen this in other 100-day videos, but we actually decided to make a little area that would allow us to knock all the mobs that spawn into the void instead of having to get low on health when trying to fight off all the mobs. We went back to chopping down more trees for more wood, and then extended the island out even further, chopping down more wood and extending the island even further. Later on in the video, we will actually decorate this island as well. Additionally, Additionally, while we extended the island out, the block was also starting to upgrade again. You know the deal. As soon as the block upgraded, we started breaking it, but this time we were now on the nether phase. During the nether phase, another monster party spawned, and we were forced to fight it off. There were blazes, along with a ton of other random mobs you would expect to find in the nether. The hole in the island actually came quite useful in some situations. We could knock off many of the mobs, such as these piglins. It was around this time that we also wanted to make our farms better. We started to destroy our old melon, pumpkin, potato, and sweetberry farm, and then started using up all the dirt to drastically extend the farm. With the massively extended farm, we started tilling the land, then planting all the crops as well. We also made this random pattern out of red sand and soul sand, where we would eventually plant cactus and netherwort, as well with some jungle logs to plant cocoa beans right next to that. We finished planting the rest of the crops, and then we moved on to completing a task which took a surprisingly long time to complete. This task was to chop down every single tree that we had grown. There were a lot of them, and most of them were the tall trees that have logs randomly spread between all the leaves. So you can imagine this took quite a bit longer than necessary. After we had finished chopping down all the trees, we replanted all the saplings, and now we had a ton of wood. This would hopefully be enough wood to help us complete most of the island expansion that we were about to do. For an island design we originally thought we were going to do, each side had to be an even distance from the block, so that's what we did. We calculated how far each side should be from the middle block, and then just started building in all the gaps. And now that we were also on the nether phase, we could start to get items such as obsidian and ancient debris, which is a cool little step up from the previous stages, though it would mean the block would take even longer to break, even with the diamond pickaxe. Once again, we spent some time at the block trying to grind through each phase. Around halfway through day 30, we had finished the nether phase, and now we were on to the 8th phase of the block, the ideal or something, idyll, something like that, however it's pronounced. This was a strange level. There were bees that would spawn, there was a lot of quartz, a lot of honey blocks, and blocks from all the previous levels. Some bees spawned in, but they were also angry at us, and they started attacking us, so we had to run away just so we wouldn't die. And like the previous few days, we continued to grind out the block. Nothing special really happened on these next few days. However, in the next day, we will change that, and we would visit a brand new dimension. As on day 34, we would put all the obsidian and lava buckets together to form a nether portal. We went through the nether portal just so we could mine the 4 corners of the portal for that extra obsidian, so I could come back home and then craft up an enchant table using 4 obsidian, 2 diamonds, and a book. With some extra iron we had laying around, I crafted an iron axe, and using some lapis, I enchanted the first tool of this playthrough. I decided to enchant an iron axe because for this day, we had a lot of wood chopping to do. Our massive forest we were running on our island was once again starting to get out of hand, and it was getting quite messy. Though there weren't as many big trees this time, there was still quite a few, along with all the other small trees, making this task take a lot longer than it should have. I hate circles. Want to know why? Well, it's because of this task that we were about to do. Remember how we made each side of the island the same length from the middle of the block a few days ago? Well, we decided to scrap that idea and turn the island into one massive circle, meaning we were going to have to look up a Minecraft circle generator and then copy a simple circle shape. You may be thinking this would be easy, but it took way too long. Certainly way longer than necessary. At the size of the island that it was at the moment, it was way more difficult due to the amount of blocks that we also had to break from the previous day's expansion. On top of that, we had been playing Minecraft for quite a long time at this point, so our brains just weren't properly working. But eventually, after quite a few days of just breaking blocks, trying to sort out the proper shape for the circle, we had managed to completely turn the island into a massive circle. Remember the pond that we built a little while ago? Well, we also need to change that. We had a few plans with our island, and for now, we had decided to replace all the bamboo with sugarcane. So we had to break all the dirt and replace the dirt with some sand, but before we could place it with sand, we had to place blocks underneath because the sand would just fall into the void because it's a gravity block. So once we removed all the bamboo and replaced the dirt with sand, it was now time to place water on top of all the prismarine slabs, because another thing, if you didn't already know how sugarcane works, if there isn't water right next to the block that the sugarcane is on, it cannot be planted or grown whatsoever. So we had the tedious task of moving water onto all the prismarine slabs. And then, of course, we also planted the sugarcane. You may notice we're making a lot of changes with this island, but don't worry, it will all make sense in a few more days. On top of all that, we also had a few other cleaning up tasks and other island transformation tasks, I guess you could say. We first began by removing our tree farm, but don't worry, this actually isn't being removed, it's just being moved to the outside of the circle island. With all the dirt we had been collecting from breaking the block, we had a lot of it to spare, so we went around the outside of the island, placing dirt with a 3-block gap in between each block. And once we had completed the dirt stage, we then moved on to once again planting saplings on top of all that dirt. Don't worry, this will all make sense very soon. Our goal was basically to make some sort of a paradise, basically being surrounded by all sorts of greenery, making it look really cool. From there, we then went around the circle, placing spruce slabs in between all the dirt blocks for decoration, because we personally think this would look way better. And honestly, after placing all these spruce slabs in between the dirt blocks, it made the island look 10 times better than what it could have looked like without the spruce slabs. Unfortunately, we also had to move our nether portal, as it would just get in the way with all the trees growing and all the other things that we were about to do. Chests and storage. It can come in handy. The only problem with storage is when you have to move all of it. The current area that all our chests were in would mean they would get in the way with the island design that we were going with. So we now had the very tedious task of moving every single item and block we had collected. On top of that, we also wanted to somewhat sort the chests out. Each chest would be dedicated to their own different type of item. For an example, there would be a chest full of blocks, a chest full of farming items, or even a chest full of valuable items such as diamonds, iron, gold, and much more. You could imagine how long it would really take us to move 12 double chests full of items. And on top of that, some of these items can't even stack, so we'd have to go back and forwards many times just to move one simple double chest, let alone 12. The smarter thing we could have done would have just been to move all the items, but not have to go extra and make sure they weren't sorted into their respectable chest types. This wasn't going to be fun. However, it was also necessary if we wanted to make any more progress on our island design. But now that's all done, we had a little bit of time to spend back at the block. We could once again continue making our way through the block phases. However, that was short-lived, because I know it may seem that we just completely changed the pond design a few days ago. However, now we were also going to have to completely remove it. Later on, when you see our final island design we were going for, you'll understand how this pond would just simply get in our way. It just had to be removed, and there wasn't really any way around it. Using some sponges from, I believe, the ocean phase quite a few days ago, we were able to fairly easily remove all the water. Though we also did have to dry a few of the sponges in the furnaces a couple of times because of just how much water there really was. But now the water was gone, we had the fun task of removing the walls, collecting all the cobblestone as well, because I mean, it is just cobblestone, though it will come in handy in some situations. And then we also had to remove the floor, where we didn't really have to collect the spruce slabs because we can easily get that wood back. And we also now had to fill in the massive hole that was now in our island after removing the entire pond. Our poor island, all the progress we had made in the previous days were just now a waste of time. I really hate circles now, because in the center of our massive island circle, we now needed to make another circle. We spent a little while measuring out how big we actually wanted this circle to be, but eventually, after a lot of trial and error, we also figured out the size and shape of this one as well. And now we had another very tedious task to deal with, and that was to break every single slab within the new circle shape that we had just measured out. Hopefully, in the end, the island will look very cool, and hopefully it will be completely worth our time. Maybe, fingers crossed. Oh yeah, we also filled in a part of the circle with some dirt as well, and connected it to a grass patch to hopefully fill it in with a ton of grass as well. We hit a little bit of a dry patch with island building, because now all we were doing was mining the block. We wanted to make as much progress as possible, and the only way of doing this was really by breaking the block. Also, if we wanted to defeat the Ender Dragon at any point within these 100 days, we were going to have to complete another 2 whole phases of the block, and also prepare ourselves with armor and weapons that can defend us against anything that would get in our way. As Grasspatch would slowly engulf all the dirt, we had made our way through the stages of the block, fighting off some annoying mobs such as these silverfish. From all the block breaking, we had collected a ton of materials, and now it was time to go ahead and build up a mob farm. And this mob farm would certainly come in handy with any XP collection, and if we needed any other mob drops such as bones and arrows, we would now be able to collect it all easily. But first, we had to go ahead and build it all up. Also, procrastinating along the way. That's why it took so long to complete. Every single time I had built this farm, it would never work for me. However, knowing that there was basically nowhere on the island for mobs to spawn, we could confidently say that this farm was not only going to work, but it was going to be extremely fast and overpowered as well. And now that we had a working mob farm, and it was also producing a ton of mobs at an extremely fast rate, we had returned back to our block to get through the final 2 stages. We grinded through all the blocks. Sometime through the block, we also had to face another monster party, though we took those mobs out pretty easily. We also got a totem of undying in the process. Now, apart from that, we continued to break the block, fighting off any mobs that would face us, and soon we had finally made it to the end phase, where all the end mobs would start spawning. And before we made any more progress, I would like to say this was definitely the most annoying stage. Endermites would start spawning, though before you say they're really easy to deal with, upwards of 10 endermites would spawn at once, and you would have to take them all out before continuing on making any more progress on the block. They were extremely annoying, and I'd be willing to say they're way worse than Vexes. Apart from that, a few times Endermen would spawn, which would allow us to gather Ender Pearls, which we could then use later when the End Portal would spawn. If we were to get extremely unlucky with the Ender Pearl drops, there would be no way for us to enter the end. We fought off another monster party, and I believe this may be the last monster party, though I'm not 100% sure. Apart from that, we then continued grinding through the block a little longer until the End Portal spawned in, and now we were on another block. However, here we would be able to break the blocks from all the other previous stages. First thing we did when we completed the end phase was we went ahead and got iron armor for everybody, along with the tools as well, which would allow us to survive against any mobs that we'd face in the end. We then went back to the block for a little while longer to gather any other materials that we may need. And to change things up a little bit, we actually decided to build a quick little house that ended up looking pretty decent. Not bad whatsoever. We thought it would be a pretty cool way to change things up from the usual block breaking and fighting off mobs. The final day before the big day 100 was spent by completing any necessary preparations to fight off the Ender Dragon on the following day. And here we are, on day 100. We made the Eyes of Ender, filled in the portal, and now it was time to defeat the Ender Dragon. Like all these dragon fights, we started by shooting out every single crystal with all the arrows from the mob farms, and not long after the crystals, we started firing our arrows at the dragon, and then it would perch, we would hit it with our sword, and then eventually we had finally finished it off with our bows. And there we have it. That was 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore 1 block. If you enjoyed this video, then check this one out next.